Welcome, this is Professor Tom Wolf, and welcome to day 2 of our HTML website development. Today we're going to talk about images and links. So we'll look at some more of the cascading style sheets. We'll look at how we can style our header. We'll do some more styling for the paragraphs that we put into the page already. Then we'll learn about how to do hyperlinks. So we'll learn about URLs and how we use the anchor link to create hyperlinks in the page. We'll look at how we style the links that are in the navigation section. These are the links that will navigate between the pages of our site. And then we'll look a bit more about how to do images with the image element, which we've already seen, but we didn't go into a lot of detail. So the goal today is that after today you should be able to add additional pages to your website. And of course that'll be up to you what content you want to put in. So you can add as many pages as you want, and they'll be in the navigation link. I'll also probably show you how to create external links, although you don't necessarily have to put that in your site if you don't want to. Okay, we're going to start with styling the header. So we can add a background color and a border to the header. That'll make the page look a little bit better. And inside the header we have that nav element. Right now that's empty. That's where we're going to put the navigation links. So we'll have a navigation bar that'll run across the top of our window in the browser, and that'll allow the user to navigate between the pages of our site. Now you can put the nav in the footer. That's not too common. And one reason for that is that as the page is displayed, sometimes then that'll scroll off at the bottom of the screen. So it's more common to put it at the top of the page or sometimes vertically on the left. And so I'm going to show you how to put it at the top of the page. Let's take a look here at the CSS. We'll do this in the editor here in a minute. But you can see here that I have a element selector on the header. So these rules will apply to the header element. And I'm setting the background color to gold. That'll be a little different than the yellow background that I have on the body of the page. And then I'm going to put a border around the header. And I'm going to go ahead and align the content. And one thing I forgot to put in here is I'm going to probably want to put a border radius so that my border has rounded corners. So I'll try and remember to do that when we get into Netbeans and do the editing. Now I wanted to show you this. If you look here, you have heading space H1. So this is, oops, that's actually a mistake. I just realized that. Yep, sometimes Tom makes mistakes too. So I fixed that. Basically, if you look at this, it's header space H1. So this H1 is an element selector, but when it's listed like this after header, this is called a Descendant Selector. So basically that says apply these style rules to the H1 element, but only when it's inside the header. And that's what I want to do here. So here I'm just setting the font size for this H1. Okay? Alright, sorry about that. Okay, we're also going to look at hyperlinks. We use the anchor or A element to create those. And it has an important attribute called href, which is short for hyperreference. And that's going to be the URL, the Uniform Resource Locator, of the page that we want to link to. And URLs you're going to see can either be relative, like the ones in our site, or absolute, like ones that are external links to pages that are on other sites. And the way the URLs work is the first part is called the protocol, then the second is the host name, then the file path, and then there's an optional internal part which talks about what part of the page, and we call that the target. We're not going to use those here, so I won't talk about those. So the protocol is going to be either http:// or the secure version of that, https:// or it can be some other things. Now, you can't just make this an HTTP secure one. It has to be on the server that's doing that. So we're going to almost always use the first form here. Okay. And there's really no reason for your personal site to have secure links anyway. Again, the host name is the name of the web server where the page is located. The file path is the path on that server that leads to the document that we're trying to link to. And that optional part at the end is the internal location within that document. Again, we won't use that. Now, if we have all this information, it's called an absolute path, and it's not required. So if the first two, the protocol and the host name, and the last, the target, are optional. And so it turns out that typically a relative URL, which is what we use to link the pages within our site, is just going to be the file path. Okay? So again, absolute URLs have all the information, the protocol, the host, and the file path. They might optionally have the target. Relative URLs don't typically have the protocol or the host, and therefore they're dependent on the location of the document that they're in, since they only use the file path. And when you get an elaborate site structure where you have a bunch of subdirectories and things like that, then we use these meta characters to further control that. So a relative URL can consist of just the file name, and that kind of suggests then that that file is right there in the same directory as the document that's linking to it. And that's pretty common. If you think about it, all the files we've created so far are in the same directory for our site. Now, if you need the meta characters, the double dot means go up to the parent directory of the current one. The slash, if it's the very first thing, means the root directory, and that's not too likely that we'll use that here. And then of course we also use that as a separator between subdirectories. So you should probably be familiar with this already. It's the same way that the file system does the names of the files in the file system. Okay? Alright, so our hyperlinks are going to use the URL, and the href or hyperreference attribute is going to take the URL. And notice how this works. The opening tag has the hyperreference attribute, and then what we call the display text is what the user sees as a clickable link. And most browsers will also underline that, although I'll show you how we can get rid of the underline in our navigation bar. Okay? And then we have a closing tag that closes the element off. Okay? So again, href stands for hyperreference. Those are referred to as hyperlinks. Pardon me. Here's an example that uses an absolute URL. So this would be a link that links to my UC web page, and you can see it's http://homepages.uc.edu/tilde-wolft. Don't worry about that tilde. That's specific to the web server that my page is on. Here's a relative page. This is actually the kind of link that we'll have in our site. So notice this is going to be a link to the home page, and we'll put this on every page, including the home page, and you'll see when we're in the editor that we'll put a placeholder in here. So you don't really want to have a link that links to itself on the page, right? That just tells the browser to reload the current page, and that's really wasteful. So when we do that, we replace this with a pound sign. It's also important to understand that the header with all of the nav links will be the same on every page. That gives the illusion of the menu always being the same way. If you don't do that, then the menu will jump around from one page to the other, and that kind of tends to be confusing for the user and distracting. So you'll see that as we begin to open. Okay. You don't normally do this except for external links, but if you want the link to open in a new browser tab or a new window, you add a target attribute here. So you say target equals _ blank, and that will display the link when the user clicks on it in a new tab, and that leaves your current one open, which means that I can look at external links and my site is still open in the original tab. Okay? There's a lot of CSS here. Basically, links are inline elements by default. If I create a page of my favorite links, instead of having those one after another on the same line, I probably want to make them one per line. And I can do that by changing the display element to block, which means there'll be one per line. Now this is written poorly because this would do that to every link. So probably I'm going to have a descendant header here where I'll specify the element that these are in and set that. And I'll create a links page and I'll show you how to do that. Okay? Now, we also have a real elaborate styling system for the links, and these are called pseudo classes. So basically you can create a different style for a link that's never been clicked on. That's this first one, a::link. A link that's already been viewed by the visitor, by the user, which is a visited link. And then there's also one for an active link, which is a link that's just been clicked. Usually I don't bother to put style on those because they only appear for a brief second. Okay? Finally, a very useful one is the hover. So if the user brings the mouse over the link, you can write some style that will reflect and change the style of the link when the user hovers over it. Now again, if you look at these, they're all written so they'll apply to every instance of the A link, the hyperlink. And so normally what we're going to do is we're going to write them as descendant selectors like I showed you. So for instance, I might have header space A link, and that would only apply to the links that are in the anchor elements that are within the header. Okay? Here's some examples that'll make this clear. So here, look at this. Nav A, text decoration equals none. What that does is that removes the underline for the links, and it's only doing that for the links when they're in the nav. So this is only going to affect our navigation links, not any other links that we have in the document. Similarly, here's some rules for a link when it's unvisited. So the color will be red, the font weight will be bold. And then a visited link will have a different color, which is black, and it'll be in italic. So this will be normal text and this will be italic. Finally, we have a hover rule here that says go ahead and change the background color to orange just briefly when the user brings the mouse over the link. And this is kind of redundant here because the unvisited link will be red. Okay? So that might not make a difference there. I could change that to some other color, of course. Okay? Alright, we're about to get into Netbeans and do the hands-on for today, but I wanted to mention a couple of things for you. I've created two JavaScripts. One is called Randomizer and the other is Image Sequencer, and these both work with images. And I'll record a separate video that shows you how to use these because this is optional and I wasn't sure that everybody wanted to do this, but I wanted to explain now so you could think about this. So what the randomizer does, and typically I put this on the main page on that picture of myself, is I have several different pictures of myself and it randomizes which one will be displayed. And so that basically can only be seen when the user comes back to the site or when they refresh the page. The second script will actually go through the entire sequence of images and I can set how long they display for. So for instance, pardon me, I can set it for 2 seconds and every 2 seconds one of the different images will appear. Now to do either one of these options you need to have the images in the directory, and for the sequencer option it works a lot better if the images are similar size. Okay? So again, you don't have to use these scripts. I thought you might enjoy this. You can also use them for other things than your bio picture too. You can do, for instance, if you have a portfolio, you could set the image sequencer to run through all the pictures in your portfolio every 2 seconds or whatever you like. Okay? So I'll do separate videos that show you how to implement those. I've got those debugged and we'll go into that. Alright, let's go ahead and code now. We're going to go to Netbeans and continue to work on our site. And after today, again, now things are going to become very free form. You can do whatever you want. And I wanted to very definitely not create a situation where all the pages look the same. So whatever you're going to do the rest of the week is really what you want to add to your site. I'll go ahead and continue to give you a bit more information on using the CSS, and we'll look at a few more of the HTML5 structures. The other thing I wanted to mention is you should probably start by copying your site folder from yesterday into a new folder called Day 2, and then continue, because you're going to work on what you had from yesterday, and if you mess it up, then you can easily go back. So it's always kind of smart to work that way. Alright, I'm going to go into Netbeans now, so let's go ahead and close this. And I already have my file open in Netbeans, and here it is. And before we do anything more, let's take a quick look at this. I'll close that. The image functions is the JavaScript file I was just telling you about. So this is the page. The only thing I've done since I saw you last time is I went ahead and added all the text in, which is, if you recall from the video, I didn't have that. So those are my paragraphs, and I'm going to do a little bit more styling there. And here's my image. Also, I'm not sure if I showed you this in the last video or not, but if we go over here to the CSS, let's bring that up. So we'll double click to open that. And that's how I open the index. We can close the start page, don't really need that. So if I go over here to the biopic, you see where I have float left? If I want that to be on the right, I just change it to float right. Unfortunately, they don't have a float center, which you kind of would like to have. So if I go back to Firefox and I refresh it, you'll see that my picture jumps to the right hand side. Okay? So you can do that either way. And when you have multiple pictures on a page, often what you like to do is stagger them from left to right. That's up to you then again. Okay, so we're going to first work a little bit on the text here and on this header. So let me go ahead and minimize this, and we'll start right off in the CSS. And so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a style for the header. So that's going to be header. And then of course I'll go ahead and put in the curly brace block, and then I'll start typing. So I'm going to start by creating a background color. So background dash color, and I can just down that, and I know I want gold here. Again, you can use your own colors, and just as a reminder, if you hit the tab button here, whoops, I think that was it, :tab, yeah, so if you hit the tab immediately after hitting the colon, then the color selector comes up, and so then you can navigate around through this and pick the color that you want. Here I already know what color I want gold, so I'm just going to put that in. Okay? Alright, let's just take a quick look and see what this does. So again, I'll pop back over into Firefox. And notice that I didn't launch this again. So basically I want to right click and refresh it. And now you can see that I have the gold around the header. Now notice there's no space here. That's because I don't have any padding on the header. And there's also no real margin between the header and the margin from the body. And that's sort of okay, but it'd probably be better if I added some margin here so this was even here and that this was slightly indented. So let's go ahead and put padding on the header. So again, I'll pop back into Netbeans. And I'm not sure that I want the padding on the top, so I'll put the padding on the left and the right. So padding dash left colon, and I like to use the EM units for this. So 1 EM is 1 character wide, and then I'll go ahead and put the one in for the right as well. So padding right colon 1 EM. I want those to be the same. And so later on I might add padding to the top or the bottom, but right now I don't think that I really need that. Okay, again, let's pop back and look in Firefox, and you have to remember to reload it. If you forget to reload it, it won't show the changes. So now you can see that it just added that padding there, and maybe I want some padding at the top and the bottom. I haven't decided yet, but I'll go ahead. Okay, alright, I've got more to do, but let's first go ahead and style that H1 element here. So the H1 element that I want to style is within the heading. I don't necessarily want to style every one the same way, so I'm going to do it like this. Header H1, that's called a Descendant Selector. So the rule applies to the H1, but only when it's within the header element. Okay? So I'm going to set the font size, and basically I want this to be bigger than the font that I have in my bio text. So if you look down here, I can see that's 1.5 EM, so I'll make this 2 EM, which is 25% bigger. And now let's go ahead and look at that again in the browser. Right click and refresh. And now you can see that it's bigger, so Tom Wolf's lair. Okay, so it's coming along. I also want that text to match here, so maybe I'll go ahead and set the font to the Microsoft Comic Sans, the MS Comic Sans. Let's see, and also I want to put a border around that too. So now let's do a couple of those things. So I'm going to come back to the header. I'll put a border on it. Border. And this is shorthands. Normally these things are all separate styles, but you can combine the borders, and the first one is the width. So let's try 5 pixels for the width, and then the style of the border. And I like the solid border, but there's a bunch of different styles. So you can have thin, solid, double, which is a double line. There's a bunch of these, and I'll let you do that. Look that up and see if you want to experiment with those. Again, you should realize that since it's only a week, we're not going to be able to do everything. And one of the things I'll do in Blackboard is I'll put a link to the lectures that I normally do in my semester-long class. If you want to learn more, you'll be able to do that. So for now, let's make this solid. And then the last part is going to be the color. And I think I'm going to go with the red here. Okay? And let's just go ahead again as we go. Control S to save. I'll pop on back and reload again. And there's the border. Okay? And so it doesn't look like I'm going to have to worry about putting the padding on here because it did that for me. So I won't add any padding to the top or the bottom. I thought I was going to have to do that. Okay, I'd like to put some rounded corners around here like I have on my picture. You might remember that we use border radius for that. So again, we'll go back into the style sheet, and I'll just put border dash radius, and let's see, what did I use on the picture here? 15px. That seemed to work pretty well. Let's try the 15 and see how it looks, and then we might change that if it doesn't look good. So sometimes you just check things out and you figure out, you know, what looks nice. So again, I need to refresh this, and there are the rounded borders. That looks pretty nice. I think I'll leave the 15 in there. If I wanted a bigger radius, I could increase that maybe to 20 or 25. But I kind of like the way that looks. Okay, again, I want to change this text for the header. So let's go ahead and do that next. That's going to be the font. So we'll go ahead and say font dash family, and then when the font has spaces in the name, you have to quote it like this. So this is Comic Sans MS. Okay, and that's the one that I use below for the bio too. So I'm not really great at design. I'm more of an engineer. So there's a whole science to using fonts and colors and things like that, and you can get a degree in design to do that. Okay, let's go ahead and look at this in refresh. And there we go. So now you can see that Tom Wolfe's lair, that's in the comic script, and it's not italic like this is. I kind of like that, so I'm going to leave it like that. And now let's go ahead now and just play a little bit here with the paragraph text. And so that's my bio text. So here p.bio text, again, that's going to apply to a paragraph when it has a class called bio text. So if we look down here, p.class bio text, and these run way off to the side. I just copied them in there. And you should have done that on your own too. So I talked about this already, so I just wanted to review that. Okay. So basically what we want to do is we want to indent the paragraph. So the way we do that is text dash indent. You can see it there in the list. So grab it and hit enter. And then I usually use characters for this. So 2em. And then let's save that. Go ahead and take a quick look. Again, refresh. And there we go. So now I have these nice indented paragraphs. So anytime that you have text for the user to read, it's usually smart to go ahead and indent the paragraphs. We're used to that. It makes it a little more readable. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I want to play with the first letter. And that's a strictly decorative kind of thing. It'll make it look cooler. And I think I'm going to have to do a quick check on my reference here for that, as I always forget how to do that. So this is a a different file that I'm using to just quickly look that up. There it is. So it's the paragraph, bio text, ;, first letter. Okay? So let's go back into Netbeans. That's Dreamweaver I have open there, by the way, if you're interested. And so this is going to be a separate selector. So let's go ahead and insert that here. So p.bio text, ;, first letter, and then we put the style in here. So this is going to apply only to the first letter of each paragraph. And so I can do all kinds of things here. I could change the color, I could change the font style. Mainly what I'm going to do is change the size. So font dash size, and since these are already 1.5 em, I'll make that 2 em. So it'll be a little bit bigger. And then let's see, I want them to be okay. So now it's kind of interesting the way this works. Since the bio text already has the style of italic, this will retain that, so I don't have to add that here. And if I put a different font family in, it'll override that. I'm not sure I'm going to like the way this looks, so I might take it out, but I'll try to change the font family. So font family, and then let's try this fantasy. I have no idea what that's going to look like. What I do know is that the first letter will be bigger now than the rest of the text. So we'll go back into Firefox, refresh this, and there you go. Okay. That doesn't look very good. It's just a little bit too big, so maybe I'll make it just slightly bigger and make it 1.75. So back into NetBeans, and instead of 2 EM, I'll say 1.75 EM. Okay, back into Firefox, refresh. Yeah, that's better. That's better. Okay. And I don't know that I like the fantasy so much either, so I think I'll take that out. There are other fonts I could probably play around. Kind of what this always reminds me of is the way the medieval manuscripts have that, highly decorated initial letter on the page. And so you could do that. You can make the font really big and then use a Gothic font or something like that. Okay, so I took that style out, and this should now, okay. Yeah, that looks better, I think. Alright, here we go. So, now let's go ahead and look at how to do the hyperlinks. And those are going to go in the nav section of the page. So I have to add those to the HTML first. So I'll come on over here, and well, it looks like I forgot to put the nav in when I did this. So now this is important. I can put the nav either above or below the title. Usually I put it below the title. Okay, so this is going to be nav. Oops, there we go. And of course we'll close that off right away. And then the hyperlinks are going to go in here, so I'll make some space. And then, so here's the first hyperlink. So href equals, now this particular one is going to be index.html on every other page. But this page I'm editing actually is index.html. So when you create a link that goes to the page you're on, that's kind of like a placeholder, and then what I do is I replace that with a pound sign instead. Right now I'm going to leave it there because I'm going to copy this and use it for the next page when I create the second page for my site. Okay? Alright, I don't know why NetBeans doesn't like that, but we'll keep typing here. So this is going to be home, which is what the user sees. And then I'll put a \a to close the element off. So this will show up in the browser as the word home, and it'll be a clickable hyperlink. Of course, right now that's not going to be real useful. It's linked to the page we're looking at. Let's just look anyway so we can see how it looks. So there it is. There's the home. Now obviously I want to do some styling on here, and so I'm going to do an extensive amount of styling. Before I do that, though, I'm going to go ahead and add the second link in. And now this is where things will start to deviate, and it'll depend on what you want to do with your site. So today I'm going to show you how to create a page that has external links, and I'll call it My Favorite Links. And right now I haven't created the page. I'm just going to create the link to it. So favorites.html. Tell you what, let's call that Fave Links, because we might have other kinds of favorites. And again, I prefer the camel case there. So favelinks.html, and then I can call the display whatever I want. Links, my links, if I want. And then we go ahead and close off the link there. And there we go. Okay, so now we have two hyperlinks in our page, and of course the one is going to a page that doesn't exist yet. Okay, so home, my links. Alright. Let's go ahead and spend some time on styling these now, and then I'll show you how to add the new page to the site. Okay, so back into NetBeans, let's go to the styling here. And so basically, if I want to create style for the links in the nav section, I'll use a Descendant Selector. So if I do this, nav, that'll be style on the nav itself. If I do nav space A, that'll be style on the hyperlinks. And as you can imagine, I'm going to have nav A like this, and then I'm going to have nav A colon link for the unvisited links, and then I'm going to have nav A colon visited for the links that the user has already visited, and then I'm going to have nav A colon hover for the link when the user brings the mouse over it. Okay, so I just went ahead and created all these, but right now there aren't anything in them, obviously. Okay, now one thing, and there's also a subtlety here. This first rule on line 20, nav A, that applies to every link in the nav section, whether it's a link visited or hover status. Okay, so the rules that I want to apply here will apply to all of the links unless I override them in the other rules. So remember, I mentioned I could take that underline off, so I'm going to do that. So text, decoration, and that's going to be none. And what that does is that removes the underline that the browser shows there. Okay, maybe we should just take a quick look and see this. So let's go here and refresh the page, and now you can see that it doesn't have the underlines there. Okay, now one of the things I like to do with my links in my navigation bar is make them look like they're buttons, and we can do that with the CSS pretty easily. So as you can imagine, one way to do that is to put a border around them, and since that's going to be in every state, I'll put that here in the nav A as well. So border colon, and let's do 2px. That's smaller border than what I use on the header. I used a 5 there, and I want these to be solid, and I guess I could go with the same color, red, that I used on the big border. Okay, and then while I'm here, I want to basically put some padding, which is space between the text and the border. Before I do that, I'll show you what that'll look like. So let's look at just this without the padding. Pardon me. So again, I got to refresh this to see. Oops, there we go. And now you can see those borders are there. Okay, so I'm going to have to put margin on this, and because right now it's running into the bottom of the border on the header. Okay, this should take me right back. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so let's go ahead and round the corners and add the padding. Yeah, that's right, add the padding first. So padding, and I'm not sure I want padding at the top or bottom here. Let's just see. We'll start with the right and the left. So padding right, maybe half a character, 0.5 em, and then padding dash left colon 0.5 em, and let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Pop over here to Firefox, refresh again, and there we go. So that's starting to look good, and I'll put some margin on this to put some space between the border and the border of the header, and that'll take care of that little visual problem there. So margin, whoops, not capital. And I think I can get away with just putting margin on the bottom. So margin bottom, and let's go ahead with the 5 em. That seems to work pretty well. wonder if I have that spelled right. That did not seem to react to anything. So let's see, nav a. Well, we could increase it a little bit. Oh, you know what? There's a better way of doing this. I should put the padding on the nav. So do I have any rules on the nav? Yes, because I put a border on there. So where is that? Header H1. Oh, no, not on the nav. I mean padding on the header. So let's do that. So here we go. Padding dash bottom. And let's start with the 5em. Save that. And just so I know what's going on here, I'm going to get rid of this, because I want to kind of work methodically and look at what each change does. If I do 2 or 3 changes and I'm not really sure what I'm doing, then I can't tell what helped. Alright, that just did not help. So for some reason these are running right against there. So let's go back in. I thought that that would work, a margin on the heading, but it didn't. Okay, so let's start by making this 1em. Make sure I save the file and reload it here in the browser. Now it just keeps moving it down there, so I think I'm going to have to increase the margin on this. So sometimes you have to play a bit to get things to be the way that you want there. Alright, so when the A is in the nav, it needs to have margin on it, on the bottom. Margin dash bottom. And let's go with the 1em, since it doesn't seem to be giving us what we like. So padding right, padding left. I'm just looking to make sure. Sometimes if you have an error in here, what happens is that the rules that come after the error don't display. So I just wanted to check and make sure. And I think I want to get rid of this because it's actually just inserting space in the middle of the header, which I don't really want. Okay, let's try again. 5th time's the charm, as I always say. Well, bloody hell, it's still not doing what I want. Okay, so maybe I have to put it on the nav itself. Yep, alright, let's try that. So we don't have any rules on the nav. So let's just do that. We'll put padding on the nav. So nav, padding, bottom, colon, and 1em. Oh, there we go. That's what we wanted. So see, again, this is the nav, and the padding goes between the content and the border. So that's what we needed to do. Okay, let's go ahead and add some more style for those hyperlinks. So again, I have I can put a border radius on those, so I'm just going to insert that here. I like to kind of keep these style rules sort of grouped together. So border radius, and what did we use last time? 15px. I think we're going to want less here because it's smaller, so I'll try 10px here. That might be too much. If it's too much, instead of having a nice rounded look, the buttons start to kind of distort. So we can again just check that and see. Oh, that looks really nice. Yeah, so those are just about perfect. And so then I can just go in now and write the rules for the different states. So let's go ahead and do that. So I already put those in. So basically this nav A is what we're seeing right now. So those links have not been clicked on. So first off, we'll say color, which is really text color. And so let's make our unvisited ones red. And then we'll make the visited ones black. Whoops. Color, colon, black. And then for the hover, let's see what's a good color here. Let's invert the colors for the hover. So when you hover over it, the background color will be red, and the foreground color, just color, will be gold. Okay? Alright, so let's save that. Now, watch how this works. Okay. So again, I want to refresh. And now you can see that I have red text for my links. And when I, whoops. Oh yeah, so what I just did is I clicked on the broken link. So there's no link to this. The home just goes to itself, so it doesn't do anything. So notice this inverts. So now it's red with gold. So that's the hover. And now because I clicked on the My Links, I guess it's not going to work because there's no actual page there. But that should be showing the visited style. I think that's what the home is here, that it's black. So you can see that's black and this is red. Okay. So that's pretty good. I kind of like that. And if I wanted to, I can invert the colors all the time, right? So maybe I want my buttons to be more colorful. I'll just change the rules around, the colors around. So you can do that and you can play with that. And but I wanted to show you these states, okay? Alright, now we've added a couple of simple hyperlinks here. Let's go ahead and add a new page to our site, which is going to be my favorites links page. And as I mentioned, you don't have to do this. You're going to make the site what you want it to be. So your page might be different, okay? Now, when we first started, I made a small mistake. I grabbed the site and I made it into a template. But that's not what I want. I want a page template, not a site template. So the easiest way to do this is to grab the index.html, copy it, go up to the site root, and paste it in. That's going to make a new copy. And notice that Netbeans won't let you have two files with the same name. That's an error, so it gives it that name. And then we can right click here and say refactor, rename, and change the name. And now this name has to match what I have in my code already, which is fave links. So fave links. And if you rename without refactoring, it won't go through the pages. I haven't tried this, but probably it'll work. If I do the rename with factoring, it'll look for where I have the wrong name and change it. So if I already had one for this, and we want to make sure that I didn't just change something bad. So let me check my index.html. That's still good. Fave links. Did I have it right? Yes, fave links with a capital L. Looks good. Alright, so now I'm going to double click to open the fave links file. And because it's a copy of the other file, it's got my bio stuff in here. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that, and that's easy. It's all going to be in the main. So I'll just delete this, select it, and delete it. Control S to save. And now this I want to be the same in every page. So again, the first link is the home. The second link is the favorite links. If I go back here to the index.html, Now I'm going to fix this. So this is the index.html. This is a link that goes to the file that it's in, and we replace that with the #. That just keeps the browser from reloading the page. So basically, if the user clicks on home, when they're on the home page, they're reloading the page they're already looking at, and that's kind of wasteful. Alright, now let's go back in to this. And one of the things you might notice is because I copied this, it's using the same style sheet. So let's take a quick look at this. So basically I have my 2 pages now, but I don't have any content in the second page except for the structure. So now when I click on my links, there's the file. There's nothing in main, so there's nothing there, but there's the footer, and it goes back to home. So I now have two pages in the site, and they're working pretty well. Okay? So what we're going to do now is just add some stuff to the My Links page. So again, fave links, the content all goes down here within main, and I'll add an ID here. I'm not sure yet if I need it. If I do, I'll use it for styling. So ID equals fave links, and then now I'm going to put the links in. And so yeah, I am going to use the styling on that, by the way, so you'll see here in a second. Just a second, I just unplugged my computer, stepped on the cord. There we go. Alright, so I'm just going to put some arbitrary links in here. href equals http://www.uc.edu. That's going to be University of Cincinnati. And then close that link off. And now because this is an external link, I'm going to add the target to it. So target equals underscore blank. And that'll cause it to open in a new page, which I'll show you in a second. Let's go ahead and add one more link in there on the next line. And as I mentioned, by default these will be one after another on the same line, and so I'll have to fix that with the styling. So how about Facebook? href equals http://www.facebook.com. And then again I want the target equals blank to open that in a new page. Whoops. And then we'll call that Facebook. And we'll put in the closing tag. So I've got 2 elements there. That's enough just to start showing you what this will look like. So let's go back here, refresh, click on the My Links, University of Cincinnati, and Facebook. Okay, and again there's no styling on those yet, so I can style those too. All the linking style I did right now is limited to when it's in the header. So I'll have another set of styles for these links. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make them blocked so that they are 1 per line. When I have a page of favorite links, I usually like to have it 1 per line there. So the way we can do that is we can apply an A style when it's in the ID section of the favorite links. So if we go over here, and now I'm going to go down to the bottom of the file, and so pound fave links, that's an ID selector that goes to the fave links section, and then I want to style the A's when they occur in the fave links. So basically I'm being very careful to only change the style of the links when they're on that particular page in that section. Okay? And so then we want to say display equals block. So these are inline elements which are going to appear one after another on the same line, and if we change the display to block, then they'll appear one per line. So again, we go back here, refresh the page. Notice I'm still on the Fave Links page, and now they're one per line like that. Okay? Alright, that's looking pretty good. I can go ahead and start to add the styles to these. Honestly, you should know how to do that now, because basically those styles are going to be similar to the ones that we did up here, right? So here I have Nave, all the Nave ones. I could actually just copy these, and then my links will all be like buttons. Now, I usually don't do that because I want my navigation links to be different. But to save a little bit of time, I'm just going to copy these, change them, and then just edit them real quickly. Okay? So I'm grabbing all the Nave links, Control-C to copy, coming down here to the bottom of the file. Oops, lost my mouse. There we go. Hit enter to put in a blank space, Control V to paste them in, and then I'll go back up and quickly change this selector. So you don't want to repeat the selector here. And in fact, I can kind of save time by just copying this. So Control C again, come on down here, Control V. I keep hitting escape to get out of that drop down list. So Netbeans doesn't understand that I'm just doing a find and replace, and so it pops up the IntelliSense thinking I want to keep working from there, and I don't. So I'm just hitting escape to close that each time. Okay? Do we get them all fixed? Yeah, good. Okay. Alright, now let's just go through here real quickly. We want to keep the text decoration. That's the standard way, so we want to confuse the user. We don't need the border. And honestly, the padding and the margins and stuff aren't really necessary either. They're there because they were in the header. I'll leave the padding on for a minute. We'll see. Okay, so the color scheme right now is going to be the same as what I have on the page. So let's just play with that. Again, I'll let you do this on your own. You're probably a lot better with colors than I am. So again, I'm going to refresh, and now you can see that we have the colors. And now that's kind of interesting. So basically the link is the full page width when we do the background color. So maybe I don't like that. Okay. There is a way to fix that too. I could set the width of the link, but it'll get hairier to do that. So maybe I don't want to change the color on the hover. Instead, what I might do is I might change the foreground color and the size. So let's do that. So let's go in here to Netbeans again. And so again, here's where I'm doing this. So I'm not going to change the color now. In fact, I'm not going to change either color, so I'll just delete both of those. And then let's make the font size bigger. So when we hover on this, font size, and let's make this, I think it's, yeah, so one, let's see, do I have a size on these? No, so if there's no size, it would be 1 EM. Let's try 1.5 EM. And EM is a character width, and that's a very convenient measure. It's a good measure to use. Generally, you try to avoid using absolute measures because you can't tell what size browser the user's using. They might be looking at your page on a phone. They might be looking at it on a desktop. Alright, here we go. So see now, when I bring this over, it makes the link bigger. Now, also remember I set this to open in a new page. Do we do that? Sure enough. So here's Facebook. You can see that my web page is still open in a different tab. Similarly, University of Cincinnati, and my web page is still open in the original tab. So that's the target equals blank that does that. Okay, I think we're in pretty good shape here. I believe I remember to do everything. And so the important thing now is that you're able to go ahead and, from here, add the content that you want to the page. So I think we're good to go. Oh, there was one thing I wanted to show you. If you want to center things, you do that by setting the left and the right margin to auto. So it'd be kind of nice if my heading was set to auto here. So I'm going to go back and do that. And I don't know if you can hear it or not, but our little Jack Russell just started to bark at the mailman. He does that every day. So heading H1, text, align, equals cent. Whoops, no, that's not the way to do that. I want to center the H1, so I have to set the margins to auto. There is another way of doing this, actually. If I go to the header, pardon me, and I set the text alignment to center, then all the text, including the hyperlinks, will be centered. But really, I just want to center the H1, so let's do it that way. So margin dash right, and you set it to auto, okay, and then similarly margin dot left auto. That's kind of non-intuitive, but that's the way it works. Alright, let's see if this worked for us. Refresh. Whoops, it didn't. That's weird. Let's see, nav H1. I wonder why that didn't work. Sometimes that's the way it goes. You have to fiddle around to get things to work. Let's see, header H1, margin right is auto, margin left is auto. That should do the centering. Let me take a quick look at my other stuff here. I don't know if I have it centered on this one or not. Oh, I used the text align on the header to center it. The only problem with that is it's going to center the links as well. I guess I can live with that, so we'll do that. Whoops. Got the wrong key. Okay, so let's take this out. Honestly, not sure why that didn't work. I thought that would work. And instead, I'll align the text in the header. Now that's going to also align the buttons, so they'll be centered too. So text, align, center. There we go. And let's try it one more time. Refresh. There we go. See, so it centered everything in the header, including the links. That'll be okay. I mean, what's going to happen as we add the links is they'll be centered in the center here. You can actually play with this width. So you could set this width to a percentage of the page, and that would maybe look better. So, because I have all this extra space. Again, though, if I think about how the fact that this can be viewed on different browsers, it could be like on a phone like this. You see how it expands. So let's go to the home. So, and notice how the 20% on my, whatever that was, 20 or 25% on my picture makes the picture get smaller. What seems to happen with the pictures is if they're not big enough, it doesn't make them bigger. So remember I mentioned you had to have the pictures about the same size if you use the image randomizer or the sequencer, and so that's what you want to do. But if they're all over the right size, see, this is constrained to be 20 or 25%, then it'll size it down. What it doesn't seem to do is if you have a picture that's already smaller than that, it doesn't make it bigger. Okay, I think that's enough for now. Not bad. I just few minutes over an hour. All right. Hope you're enjoying this. Take care and code on, dudettes.